I want to play. You're talking about Biden, and I think this is important. Last night, and I know he's in Europe, so it's a little bit different in terms of the time zones, but he didn't go to the dinner of all the UN, the NATO leaders. I think that they had a big dinner, and they said that he was tired, and so he couldn't go. If you have watched him walk around, just walk around with Prince Charles and with the Prime Minister of England and many of the other global leaders, I think it's becoming increasingly impossible, even for people on the left wing, to argue that Joe Biden is okay. Because it's to the point now, Buck, where every step that he takes, I think he might fall. I'll give you an example. This past weekend, I was with my father-in-law and my stepmother-in-law at a wedding. My father-in-law is approaching 80. My stepmother-in-law is approaching 80. There was a wedding that went till 1 a.m. They were on the dance floor till 1 a.m. There is a big difference between how people at the age of 80 are able to carry themselves. Joe Biden is not a healthy 80. He's not a vibrant 80. He's not in control. I watched Indiana Jones, Buck. They just filmed the Harrison Ford 5th Indiana Jones movie. Harrison Ford's a pretty vibrant 80. Joe Biden is for 80-year-olds in the bottom, I would say, 10 or 20% almost of physically, when I'm talking about the mental capacity, of the physicality, right? Like, he can barely get up and down stairs.
And Mika over at Morning Joe is very upset about the inability to cover this up by his staff. If Joe stumbles, it's the staff's fault. Mika, by the way, knows how to order around staff, let me tell you. Something that she's good at is, telling the servants where to go and what to do. Here she is getting a little bit upset at the situation of Joe Biden just being as old and feeble as he is. Got to cover it up. She wants him to cover it up better. Play it.
I think his staff needs to own his age. I'm just going to be honest. I don't think they do a good job helping out the president. And I'm not talking about it like, I'm just saying, if you are managing a president's schedule and you are managing a president getting on stage and getting off stage and getting on planes and getting off planes, and yes, he's 80. You need to be there for him and you need to make a pathway. And you sure as hell better make sure he doesn't fall on a sandbag. And I blame the staff for that. I mean, these are the things that are going to hurt him. These are things that are going to be played on a loop. Okay? So do a better job, because you can't have these video images of the president tripping or the president going the wrong way. It's not going to work in this presidency because his age is going to be a factor.
Can I tell you what's going on here, Clay, in my mind? Mika is upset that when she's out with the other trust fund stepmoms, they're upset that they have to pretend like Joe Biden is not old and feeble because everyone's seeing it. It's becoming embarrassing among Democrats that they have to look at each other and act like this isn't the glaring problem that it actually is. But that doesn't mean they won't vote for him, or it doesn't mean that they care enough to do anything about it. They just want it to be covered up better.
Think about where we are, Buck. We're now to the point where MSNBC, which is default left-wing Democrat propaganda, is now blaming staffers for Joe Biden tripping and falling on stage for the fact that there were sandbags on the stage, which I believe were designed, Buck, to keep the lectern from blowing over in the wind. It's not Joe Biden's fault for tripping. Remember we played that clip of all the MSNBC people coming on saying, I fall all the time. This is not a big deal. People fall all the time. I just fell. I mean, and you heard it and you thought to yourself, this is like Kim Jong-un level propaganda. The man is not well, okay? He is neither physically nor mentally well. I think you could have a legitimate debate. Which is worse? Joe Biden's physical state, which is bad, because he even knows it's bad, Buck, because he does that little thing where he pretends like he's running. When he is about to fall over, Buck. I know they were trying to make him seem like he was so vibrant and with it. Did you see him dragging around the lounge chair or on the beach over the weekend? They were like, look at Joe Biden with his shirt off, and he was dragging around like a chair to lay out on. And I thought to myself, oh my God, he might die while he's doing this. I don't know. What do you think? Is he physically or mentally worse off? The answer is both, but which one is worse? That's how bad things are, that now it's somebody else's fault when Joe Biden trips and falls on the stage. It's his staff's
I just think,
fault.
though, I think that going back to Mika and her ladies who lunch, clinking the Chardonnay glasses, I think that as long as they believe the real decisions will be in 2024 made by Jeff Zients, Ron Klain, go down the list of the senior White House staff, and as long as they're, Anita Dunn, is she still in the mix? I mean, I don't even know. Isn't it funny? You don't really hear that much about Biden.
Klain stepped down. A lot of people are rotating out, I think, in advance of the campaign.
Zients took over for Klain, right? But that doesn't mean that Klain is not.
Or that he's not going to come back as a part of the campaign apparatus and everything
and in
else.
The senior orbit. I'm just saying those figures, it doesn't even really matter who they are. But as long as, because remember, they're Obama administration holdovers. Biden just puts a Biden name on an Obama apparatus, and Democrats are fine with that. And that's why I don't think the age, I don't think this stuff matters to them at all. Their only worry is, can we convince enough? People have been pointing out, what did Trump lose by in those 3 states? Officially, what's the official tally? We'll just look at the official tally.
If you basically change 20,000 votes.
20,000? Yeah, I mean,
20,000 votes change, then he wins.
So they figure if they can run the same playbook in the same states and get the same independents to go the same way, you get Biden term 2. Simple as that.
I would just leave this as we go to break here. We can come back and we can talk about it a little bit. If this is the kind of conversation Democrats are now having publicly, it's their fault, he tripped over the sandbag. What are really well-sourced Democrats saying privately? And, Buck, I would just ask you this. What stories that aren't going public are circulating around the Gavin Newsoms of the world about the gaffes? When you have Joe Biden coming out and trying to say hi to a dead congressperson in public, where's Jackie? That's a big deal, but we see it. What is actually happening behind the stage where they whisper and see things where they're like, oh, my goodness, this is indefensible?
The only way that stuff comes out, you have to remember, during the Trump administration, we saw this where you could be, remember the guy who wrote now I see him on TV occasionally, the guy nobody
Anonymous
had ever heard of, who was like,
I'm
writing this letter because I am keeping my hand on the threshold of democracy. The anonymous op-ed guy, whatever. It's like, because of me, the Trump train is not going off the tracks.
And the Trump people were like, we don't even know who that guy is.
I knew that it was nobody that anybody knew in that White House at the time. But anyway, there's always the incentive to leak against a Republican president. If you're somebody who feels like you haven't gotten the job you want in that White House or whatever, you go tell you have a piece for the New York Times or the Washington Post, you have a quote that's going to slam a Republican president, they're going to sweet talk you. They'll probably say, hey, I'll introduce you to my publisher. Maybe you should write a memoir. There's all that. You and I both know in this Biden White House, if you go to the Washington Post during the election cycle with something that would really hurt Biden, they'd be like, I don't want to have this conversation. They don't want to talk to you about that. They're not looking unless you're right and the Newsom machine is working in the background. We'll talk more about this. The Newsom machinery is getting loud. Everyone's joining Team Newsom among the Democrat conspiracy side. I only hear people on the right saying this. I do not hear any Democrats saying it, which I do think is noteworthy.